Hi everybody, Dan Stolebarger, KFIR Middle East update, the week of July 19th, coming to you from San Diego, outdoors as you can see. And a reminder, go to our website, holygroundexplorations.com. The PDF PowerPoint each week gives you much more materials than the YouTube does. Every article has photos connected to it, so I'll entrust that to you. I usually jump into my musings, and this week I was thinking about Huckabee's quote. Michael Huckabee, the former governor, presidential campaign a while back ago. His closing message to the Christians who are, quote, neutral when it comes to regarding Israel, he says, absorb yourself in the Bible. And it just so happens I've been going through a series on the book of Zechariah. Yeah, connected, Zechariah Revelation, it really is. And I'm amazed on how detailed Zechariah is regarding end times prophecy, how it is a template and overlaps the book of Revelation. Remember, God's not finished with Israel. And it's important for you and I to study the scriptures to see what's actually taking place in this day. I'm reminded of an old Larry Norman song, one that I remember when I first became a Christian during the Jesus movement. And it was a song about the end times, Jesus coming back, and he says, you know, if you're truly wise, you'll keep your eyes on Palestine. I'd like to say Israel in this day, but it is true. We need to be aware of what's taking place. That's the reason for our Middle East update. Well, I'll go into our sort of that was musings. I go into our news bites. What do we want to talk about this week? Iran, Rouhani is prepared to, in a sense, rejoin talks with the U.S. if the U.S. would, of course, reduce its sanctions. I don't think that's going to happen. Of course, Hezbollah, Nasrallah, warns Israel that they can be wiped out at any minute if there's a war between the U.S. and Iran. You'll see an article here. He's holding up a map and he's saying we now can reach Eilat. And it is true, IDF estimates that the precision missiles of Hezbollah could in fact do that, and keep in mind they have up to 150,000 rockets in these days. Because I was in Israel during this time, and because we're always dealing with this pay for slay, last week we talked about how much money has already been given to the butcher, the murderer of the three boys, teenage boys outside of Hebron. I just came across this that HBO has got a new series that's simply called Our Boys. Watch for it. It's a documentary on that kidnapping. Netanyahu, of course, is not going to just sit in a back room anywhere. When he has the opportunity to speak, he will. In regards to Iran, Europe, sanctions, etc., he simply says some in Europe won't wake up until the Iranian nukes actually fall on them. And we'll talk a little bit more about the progressives and Trump, if you can actually call them progressives. U.S. President Donald Trump continues to put Israel at the center of his tirade against the so-called progressive women in the U.S. Congress, saying that they have made Israel feel abandoned by the U.S. He writes, if Democrats want to unite around the foul language, racist hatred spewed from the mouths and actions of these very unpopular and unrepresentative congressmen, it will be interesting to see how that plays out. I can tell you that they've made Israel feel abandoned by the U.S. Trump goes on to double down in all of this, and you've heard the rhetoric saying, hey, if you don't like our country, if you don't love our country, if you hate our country so much, then just go back to where you came from. And of course, that set off a racist firestorm in Congress, etc. Netanyahu, on the other hand, has a decision to make, because both Omar as well as Tlaib indicate that they're coming to Israel for a visit, and it's in the hands of Netanyahu whether he allows that to happen or not, because of Omar's new stance on the BDS. There's an article here called Truth Spoken Here, Censorship of Conservatives. Whether it's Google, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Twitter, you can read this article because conservatives are being censored, and all in the name, progressive and liberals like to say that they're against discrimination, but the reality is that if it goes up against what they believe me, we are censored and we are discriminated. There's nothing liberal about liberals, just know that. That article that I referred to, the BDS and Ilhan Omar, she's bringing a bill to Congress this upcoming Tuesday. We'll cover it next week. It's pro-BDS, boycott, divestment, sanctions, legislation against Israel. And again, her reasoning behind of it is Omar told the press that it's an opportunity for us to explain why we support this non-violent movement, which is the BDS movement. Hamas, on the other hand, not so measured in their speech. A senior Hamas official has urged members of the Palestinian dispersion to, are you ready for this? Kill Jews around the world. This is Fatih Hamad. His quote is, "If this siege is not undone, we will explode in the face of our enemies with God's permission and God's glory. The explosion is not only going to be just in Gaza or in the West Bank, but abroad if Allah wills." So this is just a call to kill Jews around the world. Peace. This is the peace partner that we want to encourage Israel to deal with. I've already talked about Nasrallah. His quote basically is that Israel's weaker than a spider web. We can strike the targets of Haifa all the way down to Eilat. The truth is they probably can. They have upwards to 150,000 rockets, some of them with precision. And he claims they have 1,000 targets that are marked. Of course, Israel says launch one and we'll make Lebanon a parking lot. But this is the saber rattling that's taking place in our world today. There's an article here that I want you to take the time to read. It's the Palestinians' approach to why they rubber stamp killing of children. That's right, mass murders of children. Abbas's Fatah movement believes that the mass murder of children, by the way, keep in mind, the icing on the cake, the plum for a terrorist, is not just to hit a populated neighborhood, it's to kill children. That's why in Gaza, most of the rockets are attempted to be aimed at preschools and elementary schools, because that's the nature of terrorism. If a rocket were to take out an elementary school, there you have the nature of the name. It just creates terror. How do people deal with that? And so for Fatah, as long as Israel exists, Palestinians will have the right to kill Israel children as part of its legitimate struggle to destroy Israel. It's in their charter. You can see the pictures. This is one of their heroes. She's a suicide bomber. She killed these 12 children that you'll see in the picture. And then I'm running out of time, so as we kind of conclude, I think there's a good consensus sort of article that I've labeled the Two States Recap. Just a touch of it, since I've got about 30 seconds. Keep in mind, when we talk about the two-state solution, it means that Israel would have to completely leave the area of Judea and Samaria, what the world calls the West Bank. It would mean that Israel's borders would be indefensible. Israel would be just completely surrounded. And the question is, why would Israel ever put up with that situation? The thing is, the Palestinian Arab leadership don't even want two states. They want one state. But their one state simply means the eradication of Israel. They'll never be satisfied with land for peace. The only peace they see is when Israel ceases to exist. One last article, in a sense, having to do with the tentacles of Iran. You can see that picture. Getting Iran out of Syria is not going to be that easy. So that's our report for this week. I wish you the best. Wish you God's shalom, and may I pray the Aaronic blessing over you. May the Lord bless you and keep you, and may the Lord make his face to shine upon you and to give you his shalom. God bless.